for using the term, we want to run it forward, our process and who we are.
Here we go, run it. Come what's up?
Got to just continue to get these reps because they're so valuable.
Just to take another step forward is something that I always loved.
Hey, let's be great today, baby.
We setting the standard for our defense.
There has been plenty of active activity for the first 4 days of training camp, and today we're going to take you through all of the action. Welcome to Training Camp Central, powered by Boyle and Jen Mueller, alongside John Boyle and our newcomer today, Ari Horton, making her training camp debut. Welcome in, Ari.
Thank you. Excited to be here. This will be a lot of fun.
Well, John, we were going to put her on the spot. Made some opening comments, and then I realized that I actually had to admit that I lied. So, well, when we were with everybody last week, I promised there was going to be action on the field. When we came back, and there's no action on the field. So,
everybody down.
My apologies. I know, I let everybody down. So far, we have seen just a lot of really crisp practices. Our focus today is going to be on the offense, the new offensive coordinator, the wide receivers that you see on the screen. But before I get into what I've seen, Ari, what is one of your biggest takeaways from the first 4 days of camp?
One thing that I've been super excited to watch has been the rookie Jadarian Price. I think through the first few days of camp, we've been able to see his running ability, but not only that, his pass catching ability. Ernest Jones said earlier this week that, yeah, Jadarian ran a Price, and it threw me for a loop, you know. He said that the way that he ran the route kind of threw him off, and then we seen him run a similar route just yesterday in practice, and he went for a touchdown on that. And that was a big focus for him coming out of the draft. He was like, one thing that I want to be able to show off at this next level is my pass catching ability, and we've been able to see that so far in camp.
Yeah, and it has been, I think, one of those question marks. People were wondering, and not assuming he couldn't. He just didn't have to do it very much in college. But, John, it does look like that is going to be part of the game plan for Brian Fleury.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we know that any coach who comes out of the system wants to get running backs involved in the passing game. And as you said, it was not necessarily a big part of his game in college, but it kind of reminds me, we actually heard the same thing about Kenneth Walker coming out of college. Like, they just didn't throw him the ball in college, but he's like all the time, like, I can do it. And as his career went on, he proved to be a pretty good pass catcher. And we're seeing the same thing now early in camp with Jadarian Price of like, oh no, this guy can actually run routes and catch the ball as well.
Well, and we have seen a lot more of Rashid Shaheed catching the ball too. It has been fun to watch him flash in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. It's like early in camp you watch and you're like, oh look, they're really good at throwing the ball to JSN, which is like the least shocking thing in camp possible. But I do think this year, as much as JSN is going to have another great season, you don't maybe need to be as reliant on him in terms of the volume, and that's because they're going to expect a lot more out of Rashid Shaheed in this offense. He, as he said last year, is kind of like jumping on a moving train. It's hard as a receiver to join an offense midway through the season, and he did a lot of great things for this team, both on offense and especially in the return game, but the numbers in the passing game were not that big. I think you're going to see that change in a big way. He's going to be a legit target in this offense as, you know, he got a whole offseason with Sam Darnold, the rest of the offense. He and Sam Darnold threw together in Southern California during the break here. So I think you're going to see a really improved version of Rashid Shaheed in this offense.
Well, and there's a reason why we're talking about the wide receivers today. It is one of the big storylines. It's not just Rashid Shaheed. I would say it's pass catchers in general, whether you're talking about the running backs or you're talking about getting some guys back out there. Torrey Horton, A.J. Barner, and I've been watching Elijah Arroyo make a lot of plays in practice too.
Exactly. I think a lot of fans are probably very excited to see that Torrey is back. He was out for majority of last season, but when he was playing, he had a very good start to the season. I think 13 receptions, 5 of those went for touchdowns, which was just crazy for a rookie in his first year. And then A.J. Barner just being able to show that he is more than a blocking tight end, going for touchdowns, making big plays when he was called upon. And then I think another person, like you said, Elijah Arroyo, although he was injured for a few games and didn't really have that much of a big year, there really should be that big jump in year 2 for him, and hopefully more production out of him as a tight end.
Well, and we're still getting to learn what Brian Fleury's offense is going to be like. I cannot help but notice there's a lot of tight ends on the fields, and Brian Fleury was most recently a tight ends coach in the 49ers. I think maybe he has an affinity for some of those guys, John?
Yeah, there's people joking with A.J. Barner earlier in the offseason, like, it's just going to be all, 3 tight ends on the field at once, all 13 personnel all the time. And I don't think we'll see that. I mean, Brian Fleury knows his job as a coordinator is, to do whatever's best for the offense, not the tight ends. But that being said, he's, worked in systems that utilize the tight end a lot. Last year, the Seahawks were one of the most efficient teams in the NFL in 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends on the field. So I think you're going to see, not just because of the new coach being a tight ends guy, but just because this offense ran really well tight ends, and they got some really darn good tight ends. So it's going to be a fun position group this year for sure.
When we think about the week in review, I think we can also talk about the storyline of the possibility of repeating as champs, which, as we know, is not really the conversation. The conversation is run it forward. This is a new team that is in a different spot than they were last year. The messaging has been consistent. We have talked to guys for the first few days of practice. We're going to end those conversations, but I did think it was interesting to hear from Julian Love on how coach and the team is messaging this and just getting to make sure that buy-in is at the same level that it was last year.
His team meeting was on point today, talking about kind of the early Bulls teams, kind of the 91 team, how they kind of got over the hump, the idea of Jordan, being the scoring champ for years before that, but still not getting over that hump with the Pistons, and him being selfless enough to take it dial it back a little bit and understand that we get the job done. And I think when you start to play team ball like that, Phil Jackson incorporated that, that's when you see the good stuff happening. And so basically his message is that the new thing, that little nugget he gave to us was, man, that 12-1 is real. The more we dive into and invest into each other, the more, that we'll receive out of this whole deal. And so it was a cool little nugget. I liked his team meeting today.
The early 90 Bulls are a great example for a young team looking to build off success because, as folks probably remember, they did some pretty good things after that first championship in Chicago. And I love that example that he brings up about, tying it back to 12-1 and the unselfishness. And, he followed up on that one talking about the pass rush. And this team did not have a player with more than 7 sacks last year, despite having one of the best and deepest defensive fronts in the NFL. Look, they finished the year with 6 sacks in the Super Bowl. They obviously can get after the passer, but it's not their style to be like, okay, I'm the star, I need my double-digit sacks. Whether it's Leonard Williams, whether it's one of the many good players off the edge, Byron Murphy, they have so many capable players. But that focus on, hey, we're going to do what's best for this defense and what's best for the team as a whole, and that's going to be really important to this run-it-forward mentality of, hey, just because we had a great season last year, we can't be focused on that. We just got to work together on moving forward.
Well, and it's cool to hear that from all around the team.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Jack said the
stuck.
same thing. The message is stuck. And I think that there's a couple of things there, and I think it is why Seattle is not being talked about as favorites in their own division, right? Because the message is very clear. This is not about going out and repeating. This is kind of rebuilding that entire mentality and mindset and starting from square one. And we heard DeMarcus Lawrence say earlier this week that, he thought about retiring. Mm-hmm. But it's one thing to win a championship. It's another to go out and defend a championship. And, Ari, we've heard new guys come in the building, and they know that there's something special here.
Yeah, I think we heard that from Dante Fowler earlier this week. He came in and he was like, I could tell from the outside that what Seattle was building was something special, which is part of the reason why he wanted to sign here in free agency. Just the atmosphere that Coach McDonald has come in and the culture that he has kind of created makes players want to play here.
Well, and Sean, we know it's special here. I mean, Ari, you know it's special here. But when you hear that from an outside person who doesn't have, right, any other knowledge of what it's like, to me, that's what hits.
Yeah, it really validates. I mean, we hear all last year, how special this team is and the connection and the closeness, which was very real. That was a big part of their success. But it's when you see somebody coming in from the outside, and a guy like Dante Fowler, I mean, I believe this is his 10th year in the NFL. He's played for a bunch of teams. He's seen a lot of football in a lot of different teams, cultures, And for him to, he kind of joked about a lot of times OTAs, you just want to go home and do your own thing. But he's like, I wanted to be here. Shout out to the strength and conditioning staff, too.
Yeah.
He credited them for being part of that and, having him in great shape, feeling like some of the best football he's ever played is ahead of him because of that. But, yeah, it's, guys want to be here. I mean, the best example is we heard from Mike McDonald before the season or before the offseason program, like, I told a lot of the veterans they don't need to come for the first part of phase 1. Stay home, do it on Zoom. You guys had a really long season. And then we get out here day 1, and Spoon's out there. Derek Hall's out there. Jaron Reed, one of the elder statesmen on this defense out there. Not, a few guys did stay home, and good for them for getting a little free time. But so many guys showed up when Mike basically told them, you don't need to be here.
Yeah, it is really fun. And it's fun to watch the connection that is happening on the field. And I do want to go back when Julian was talking about the pass rush, right? He had said, well, Leo could ask for every single number 1 snap. But he doesn't because he knows that it's important. It's the mentoring aspect, right? It's the next man up. However, yesterday, at the end of practice, we did see Leo exert his dominance over Derek Hall. And I tell you what, guys, I mean, like, there's no drama in this camp. Hard Knocks had to have been going crazy when they saw that, right? Like, what was your van? I was staring right at them. So in case you did not see or don't know, all of a sudden Leonard Williams, Derek Hall, they just get together. It's like they're in a wrestling ring.
It actually seemed like they were in a wrestling
Yes!
match. At one point, Leonard picked up Derek Hall and
Yes.
he lightly
Yeah,
in the most.
Yeah, nothing too rough. Don't worry about it. No one's getting hurt out there.
He put him on the ground, and then in comes Mike Morris running as a
Yes.
WWE referee, kind of counting down, for him to tap out. And it was just, I think, a good showing of the loosened, focused mentality that Mike McDonald has implemented here, and then just also a good showing of how connected these guys really are.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent of young children, it looked like something I might see my kids doing. Like, you look over, you're like, why are you picking him up and putting him on the ground? But it was hilarious, and he, afterwards, it happened to be a day that Leo was talking to me. He's like, sometimes I gotta assert my, just remind the young guys that I'm still the guy, and kind of showing off the old man strength.
Well, what's funny is that I talked to Derek Hall as he was coming off the field from that one, and it's like, hey, Derek, what happened? And the only thing he could say is, Leonard Williams is still really, really strong.
Yeah, as is Derek Hall. Like, that's not a small man he was picking up.
Yes. The Hard Knocks crews, they were around. They were in place for that. It's been kind of fun to watch them, but I wouldn't say that for all of the cameras and the boom mics that it's been intrusive in any way, shape, or form.
I wouldn't say intrusive. Definitely a lot more bodies out on the field. And if you're not familiar with training camp, you'd probably just be like, oh, a lot of media people. But for those of us who have been here for a few years, we're like, definitely like a lot more bodies, a little bit more busy, but like they're not really getting in the way of anything. And I think I hope they're capturing good things that are going to make for good television.
I will say, Ari and I are not tall, so sometimes they're in the way, and I'm like, could you slide over a little bit? I'd like to be able to.
Can you lower the boom mic a little bit?
To her point, like, it's not intrusive. It's nothing that's like, oh wow, this is so in the way. The players, we've asked players about it, and they're not too bothered by it. It's they're getting used to it. I saw John Schneider the other day. I was like, how was it being mic'd up? I was like, I forgot pretty soon into it, which hopefully it wasn't too crazy. John says some funny things sometimes, but yeah, I think that everyone's embracing it with the right approach. Like, hey, this is what's going on. It's here. We're going to have fun with it.
Well, and I think the crew is having fun with it. I've had some conversations with the camera guys and boom operators. First of all, they love being in Seattle. The weather has been spectacular. It's been very temperate. They cannot believe our views on the lakes. And I just keep telling them, wait until the Blue Angels start flying over this weekend for practice. It is like nothing that you have ever experienced.
They've also, I hope I'm allowed to spoil this, but they've been filming the Eagles flying around too. I think that's another unusual one for Hard Knocks, just have bald eagles all over the place.
Yeah, it is. I think that they are enjoying it, and I can't wait to see the first episode, which will be next week. We, by the way, will be breaking down that episode. That's a little teaser for what's coming up on Seahawks Training Camp Live. Now, if the Hard Knocks crew is not intrusive at all and, not really the front and center of attention, I could kind of say the same thing about Brian Fleury, to be quite honest with you. The new offensive coordinator, it's not that his presence isn't felt, but it's not domineering either. And John, I think part of that is the learning process of how he wants to do it, and he's also learning some of the pieces there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy this is new to him, being an offensive coordinator in the NFL, so He's learning. The players are learning him. And I really liked hearing the way some of the players talked about, like, how, you know, not demanding is maybe not the right word, but he's got high standards. And he's pushing them and pushing himself to really meet that standard every day.
Perhaps exacting is the word.
That's a great
Exacting
word.
standards. That's the word that I would use. Of course, he's got experience on both sides of the ball, which leads him to see the game from a different lens. And as we heard from Mike McDonald, all of that is important because it's no easy task to come in and join a Super Bowl championship team.
He's been great. He's been really. I mean, he's been tremendous. Like, it's not an easy task to come into a staff that's mostly been here, and a lot of players that have been here that are used to doing a certain way, and you know, how do you mold, you know, how do you make your vision come to life within the framework of all the things that have been here is probably easier said than done, and we want to encourage him to keep, you know, bringing his vision to life and his, you know, being himself. And like I said with the guys that we brought in from you know, Thomas and the guys from Baltimore, it's like, hey, we brought you in for a reason, and like contribute the way that you see fit and be a part of this thing, and he's done that.
Yeah, you know, I didn't really think about it in those terms, right? You think about how is an offense going to adjust to a new offensive coordinator. You don't think about coming in to a very established team with a lot of veterans who had a lot of success last year and trying to figure out how to make all those pieces work, Ari.
Yeah, and I think, not saying it'll be an easy job for him, but it does help that there will be a lot of similarities between last season's offense and this season's offense and the way that he goes about it. We've already heard from some players, like, yes, there are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences in that way, too. There are a lot of small tweaks that he has made. And we've even heard from defensive players saying that the way that he's teaching it and the way that he's teaching it is different from last year, and that is helping us because it's keeping us on our toes. Leonard Williams said the other day that they have to get to the line quicker because the offense is getting to the line quicker and lining up quicker, and just I think that is helping both sides of the ball, not only the offense.
Yeah, and I was noticing that too. Boy, it really feels crisp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, John, there is no hesitation from this offense. I'm sure there's little things here and there, but you're not stopping practice. They're not staying in the huddle very long. They are crisp, they are detail-oriented, and they are on that ball.
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing that. I think it was Leonard Williams talked about that because that was like a big focus last year already, and that was something the offensive line really credited with helping them take the lead they did. So if they're, you know, speeding that tempo up and, you know, attacking the line quicker than last year, that's going to be fun to watch just how that operates. But yeah, to Ari's point, it's like, I'm not trying to diminish what Clint did or say that changing offensive coordinators is a big deal or is not a big deal, but this is not a complete overhaul. And I mean, last year is really the year that was like, okay, new system, new quarterback, new receiver. So it's like Brian Fleury is coming into a great spot where it's going to be pretty familiar with what he knows, and they returned so many players, including the quarterback. So this should be about as seamless as an offensive coordinator transition can go.
Yeah, and you can feel that too, right? Like, you knew, not that the offense was slow last year, but you could tell that there was a learning curve.
Yeah, it did not look like
this year.
At all.
Yeah, this year it does not feel like there is a learning curve. I will tell you, Ari is working on a story on Brian Fleury. That will be on Seahawks.com, so make sure that you download the official mobile app of the Seahawks to stay up to date on all things related to the team on and off the field. These two will have you covered all season long. Now, it is easier to be an offensive coordinator and to be Sam Darnold when you have the wide receiving crew that you did. JSN, 99 rating on Madden. I do not play Madden. I do know that this is a big deal.
Yeah.
He's only the fourth Seahawk to ever have gotten that rating on Madden.
And well-deserved. I mean, that was literally one of the best receiving seasons in NFL history, not just in terms of, you know, top 10 in yards, but when you look at the targets, the efficiency, the big playability, just everything he did was at such a high level. And we've talked about this so many times, but it's like, this is not a receiver who's getting by on just one elite trait of just, he's so big, he's so fast, whatever. He does everything so well at that position. And it's, you know, he's a special player, and I think it's fun to see all the talent around him as well.
There's two things that I want to point out to this. And this is not to take away from JSN, but for anybody who does not believe that Sam Darnold is an elite quarterback, who do you think threw him the ball on all of those passes? Can we just, like, he had a quarterback that can deliver the ball. JSN, fantastic body control. He made those plays. Guys, you have to have a quarterback that can deliver the ball, right? Yeah. We got that. Now, number two, here's what I like. When we talked to Jax earlier in camp, he pointed out, I can do all these things, but I can only do all of these things because I've got a very versatile group of pass catchers around me. Ari, we've seen Cooper Kupp come and make plays that you expected, 8 or 9 years ago. He's still making them.
Yeah, the one-handed catch down the sideline the other day, and that was just incredible. But we asked Jackson about it, and he said that's just Cooper Kupp. That's just who he is. You expect him to make those kinds of plays. And another thing that I thought that was interesting that Jackson touched on was the veteran presence that Cooper brings. Of course, he didn't have those huge numbers last season, but one thing Jackson said was that having Cooper Kupp in the receivers room is like having a second coach in the receivers room. And I thought that was very important because having somebody like Cooper Kupp is important for a receiver room to be able to thrive the way that they do.
Yeah, and we have seen, everybody make plays. Cody White was out there making some plays. I mean, I was so thrilled that he made the 53 last year. John, that's such a great story, and he hasn't shown any let-up.
I mean, he is just the classic, give this guy an opportunity, yes. He's going to take advantage. He's always that guy that's just kind of on the cusp, and he's fighting for a spot, but whether it's special teams, the big touchdown in Washington last year. It's he block a punt a couple years ago against the Rams. It just feels like when he gets his chances, he's always showing up making big plays. And yesterday was a great day in camp for him. And he's just a really solid guy to have on your team.
Do you think there will be any challenge? And the team is connected. I don't think that this is an internal dialogue problem. But when you have so many playmakers, is it a challenge to keep those guys kind of hot in the rhythm, getting the touches that they need to be the most effective version of themselves?
I think with the wrong players and the wrong leadership, it can be a big problem. You see that all over football at all levels, but we hear so much about the way John Schneider and this front office bring in kind of the right guys that fit this culture. And, Cooper Kupp was a great example last year. This is a guy who has had a 1,900-yard season. He was at his prime, he was the best, most productive receiver in the NFL. He comes in last year. Yeah, he admitted, he'd love to have the ball more. Every receiver would. But he was the opposite of being a problem when he wasn't getting the ball. He was a great leader. He was a guy that, he's in quarterback meetings. He's helping the entire offense. And I just feel like they've got a lot of these guys in this group where it's yes, Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably going to get the ball most. We all know that. But I just don't see other players becoming a problem if any particular game is not their day to get a bunch of catches.
I think we see that too in the quarterbacks, right? You talk about Sam Darnold and you talk about all of the wide receivers, but when we watch practice, second team, third team, they are making plays as well. And I hope that we never see Drew Lock in a game, and that's no offense to Drew. Right?
What do you got against?
No, everybody knows what I mean, right?
We're
talking about overall health. I want to see him. I want the health of the team to be such that the depth is not tested, but I like knowing that the depth is there. Mm-hmm. Ari, we have seen plays made by everybody on offense, including the two other quarterbacks that we are watching outside of Sam.
Yeah, I think we all know that Drew Lock has been a solid backup, and I think Sam would even tell you that Drew Lock pushes me to be better. But I think in particular, Jalen Milroe has been interesting to watch. I think after his rookie season, the few plays that he did get to play, or the few times that he did get to play, it was interesting to watch. But I think in camp, he's looked a lot better. His passing, his accuracy has looked a lot better. He threw for a couple touchdowns out here the other day, and that just watching him develop has been really fun to watch.
Well, and it's not just the quarterbacks that are developing when that happens. And John, this was kind of my point to get back to the wide receivers. You're helping the wide receivers get better too, right? I mean, this is all working together, and it's important if you are going to have that depth, and who knows where your biggest playmakers are going to come from in critical moments down the stretch, right? And so when you watch this, I don't see drop-off between first team, second team, and third team, at least in terms of attention to detail, intensity, focus, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, championship rosters tend to be deep, and that is the case all over the field, and receiver is a great example of that. You hope every game this season your top three guys are going to be JSN, Cooper Kupp, Rashid Shaheed, and you got other guys, Torrey Horton, Bobo chipping in. But the reality of this league is you're going to need more than 5 receivers at some point this season, and there are just so many guys. We've mentioned some of them. Another guy, Ricky White, was a practice squad guy. Players just praised for his work on the practice squad last year. They drafted Emmanuel Henderson. He's had some flashes. There's just so many guys that on any given day, if needed, can step up, and we've seen them doing that in camp.
And for those of us who interview players after games, it is helpful to have a huge stable of playmakers. It switches up our post-game interviews. Yeah. That's right. Also, we do have to worry about wearing out our welcome with some of those. Well, tell you what, I might have worn out my welcome today. You guys have been fantastic. Ari, John, thanks for breaking down what we have seen so far in training camp. We're going to be back with you Wednesday, August 5th. That is going to be after the first episode of Hard Knocks. So we're going to see how we look on camera.
Let's hope not.
I don't want to be in the background of anything.
That's my goal for Hard Knocks, is to not be on it.
Well, we have different goals then, John. We'll see what the storylines are emerging from their point of view, and we will keep you updated on what we are seeing from ours. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next time.